Hello, and thank you for joining us today for a very important topic. Today we are going to discuss the best practices for elopement and wandering prevention. My name is Tracy Belfield, and I am a field training coordinator with the Kentucky Autism Training Center. We really want to work collaboratively to address all these safety concerns surrounding wandering and elopement. So let's talk a little bit about our objectives today. First, I want you to understand the significance of elopement and wandering in autistic individuals. Next, we will identify common risk factors associated with the elopement and wandering. And finally, we will explore those effective strategies and interventions to prevent elopement and wandering. At the end, I will provide a resource folder that will also have some additional information for you to utilize and help your family or client. Before we begin, we must understand the terms elopement and wandering. They are often used interchangeably, but actually have two different definitions. So let's talk about that. Elopement is defined as leaving a designated supervised area without permission. This can occur quickly and impulsively, such as running or bolting from caregivers or a contained supervised area. This can happen often in a home setting, in a school setting. For students with autism, it's considered normal for toddlers and is usually kind of a short-lived phase that they go through. The biggest thing I would like to emphasize with this is to remain judgment-free. Let's be honest, if you're a parent, even of a typically developing child, when they were a toddler, there was probably a moment when your child eloped and just got away from you. I know I personally can remember an experience where I was at the mall. I was actually at Target, and I looked around and could not find my daughter, and she had just kind of ran away. I went into a panic, of course. Luckily, found her within just a few moments, and she was hiding underneath a clothes rack. But it happens to everyone. This is not a lack of good parenting. This just happens because children are very, very quick and can elope from parents. So wandering is a little bit different. It is actually considered more of an unfocused behavior. So they might be moving around inside a location or a home without that awareness of their personal safety and potentially putting themselves in harm's way. So again, they may just be walking around their yard, not really realizing the boundaries of that, and wander off into the wood line or a neighbor's yard, even potentially out into the street. So again, it's kind of a much more innocent unawareness that they run into, and they just wander away from the area that they are supposed to be in. Wandering and elopement can be forms of communication, often happening to get something of interest or to get away from something bothersome, usually noise, a commotion, even fears, phobias, or demand that's being put on them. These impulses and incidents can increase with that added anxiety and stress that they may feel, especially if the individual has challenges with coping, calming, or regulating their emotions. Anytime a situation happens and a child exits the area, be sure to check those nearby water sources, looking into any traffic that might be away, looking into public areas that may be of danger to them. So we just want to get the child back to safety as quickly as possible. So let's talk about some statistics around elopement. So let's look at elopement prevalence. Risks increase with the severity of symptoms of autism that the individual has. 49% of children with autism attempt to elope at least once after the age of 4. From the age of 4 to 7, 46% of children with autism have eloped, and from the ages 8 to 11, 27% of children affected with autism have eloped. There's a lot of risk with this. More than 1/3 of children with autism who wander or elope are never or rarely able to communicate their name, address, and phone number. So look for alternative ways. If they are not able to verbally speak those things, are there tags that you can put on their clothes, on their shoes? Is there a medical ID bracelet that they could wear that would have that information? Because that's going to help other people get that child back home into the safe arms of their caregiver. 66% of parents report a close call with a traffic incident or injury, and 33% describe a close call with drowning. Drowning is always such a huge risk with our individuals with autism. There is a huge family impact of all of this. 58% of parents ranked wandering among the most stressful behaviors associated with their child's diagnosis. 62% of families do not attend activities outside their home. Imagine never being able to go to a church gathering or a school gathering or any type of community activity where individuals are socializing and getting together for fear that your child may elope or wander. 40% of parents indicate that these fears impact their ability to sleep. So we already have families that are very stressed and are trying to take care of the needs of their child, but now they are very sleep deprived because they are worried about if the child wanders or elopes from the home in the middle of the night. So again, that's a huge thing. And if we can help curb that at all, that is going to improve the quality of life of the entire family. 50% of families who have children that have eloped report that they have never gotten any guidance from a professional. So again, this is why we help train other people, whether it's first responders, mental health providers, other people who support them. If these are issues that are brought up, we need to work with the family and help develop a plan with them. If you are a family or caregiver, I urge you, reach out to those who support you, therapists, whoever. Let them know of some of these fears and insecurities that you have and ask them to work together with you to help build a plan. This is a topic that I don't like to talk about, but it's real, and so we kind of have to. The lethal impacts of wandering and elopement. 17% of elopement and wanderings do result in death. 13% require some type of medical attention, and 38% were at an increased risk of some type of bodily harm that maybe they did not seek medical attention for. Accidental drownings, well, this is the one that breaks my heart, accounts for 71% of the lethal outcomes. And this is why we always say, search those bodies of water first thing. Make sure your neighbors know if your child goes missing, if they have pools or bodies of water near them, that's the first place that they check. And 18% of reported deaths were from traffic accidents. We also know that deaths are highest in those spring to summer months, with over half of the deaths actually happening between May and August. Again, routines are changing. Students are out of school. There may be more community events going on. These are just really sobering statistics, and we need to kind of ask ourselves, how can we do some prevention? How can we do some safety skill building, particularly as families, they're interested and they're more motivated to take those preventable action steps. So we need to develop a plan and do what we can to protect these individuals. So now that we've looked at some statistics of elopement and wandering, let's start looking at some of the risk factors and identifying those so that we can take proactive steps. Here on the screen, you see a list of high-risk situations for wandering and elopement. So let's just go through these. First up, family vacations. Again, routines are changing. We're traveling in different ways that we may not normally be traveling in. We're staying in different locations as far as sleeping. So we may be in a hotel, we may be at a family or friend's house. So again, routine has changed, and that may cause a lot of stress, anxiety, things like that this individual might be trying to get away from. So they're communicating something. So just be on high alert during family vacations, and again, have that plan, have some type of identification on the individual to where their name, address, things like that are communicated. Next up, when primary caregivers are away and children or young adults are in the care of a less familiar adult. So again, we know that our support system loves our child. They're there to support us. But let's be honest, nobody knows your child as well as you do. And so you are going to know those little quirks, those things that are changing that may let you know that they're starting to experience some stress and anxiety, and be more aware of that. So anytime that someone else is caring for your child, sadly, you are at a higher risk of wandering and elopement. So we need to share these plans and these strategies with everybody that is helping care for our child. Anytime we're doing a novel community outing, again, that's why sadly the statistics show that many families choose not to do those things. But we want you to get out there. It's very important not only for you as a family, but for the autistic individual to experience those things. We just need to be aware that we are at a higher risk of wandering and elopement in those community outings. Anytime we're using public transportation, again, it's just different open spaces. So maybe you are at the park or a sporting event, anytime that there's those big wide spaces. Again, it's a novel situation. You're possibly out of routine and they just see that big open space and it doesn't really provide the boundaries. So then you maybe have wandering that is happening, that they're just not aware that they have gone as far from you as they have, or they really want to get out and elope and explore those areas. And then we kind of have the opposite of that, those crowded spaces. So this might be like your local swimming pool, water parks, amusement parks, festivals, even shopping malls. Again, there's a lot of stimulation going on in those areas, lots of noise, lots of colors, lots of moving things. So those things may just draw the attention of the autistic individual. And so we just need to be aware of that in those crowded places. Water sources. Again, most people with autism are very fond of water. They are very drawn to water. So be very aware when you're out of what water sources are around. Maybe allow some time in the schedule for them to go visit that, or maybe make that a reinforcement at the end of whatever your visit is. Again, that's kind of for you to decide, but just be very aware that they're going to be drawn in interest in those water sources. So whether you're out on a novel experience or whether, again, you are at home, just be very aware of those water sources. And then occupied caregivers. You know, again, mom, been there, done that. We all get busy. We get into conversations. We are busy cleaning the house. We're just doing other things. But sadly, when we're doing other things, it's a high risk time for elopement or wandering to possibly happen. To be honest, in that situation that I mentioned with my daughter at the mall when she was a toddler, that's probably what happened. Is I was kind of occupied just with kind of shopping and browsing. And the next thing I knew, she wasn't with me. So just try to be mindful of that. Try to have a plan. Maybe have another person with you. You know, if you're going to be cleaning or shopping, that there's a partner there that can kind of take over the supervision part. Again, there's not always great answers for this. I mean, I can't tell you not to have a conversation, but just know that it is a higher risk time for wandering and elopement to happen. And then, of course, transitions. Anytime you're going from one place to another, again, there could just be things that draw their attention and put you at a higher risk for your individual to wander or elope. Triggers. Let's talk about some triggers for wandering and elopement. Again, sensory overload. We talked earlier that wandering and elopement is often a form of communication. So when they start to become overwhelmed and their sensory system is just, again, getting overloaded, this can be a trigger for wandering and elopement. So we need to be very careful and just mindful of the amount of noise, the crowds, bright lights, that they may want to escape. Again, you're going to know your child. We all know once you've met one individual with autism, you've met one. Some are overloaded by this, and some are very drawn to those things. So again, you'll know your child and what are going to be those triggers for them, but these are things to think about. The next thing up there is routine disruption. We know our individuals really like routine. They're usually very structured based. So anything that kind of is unexpected can be very unsettling for them. And again, just kind of make that anxiety inside them rise. And then we have an increased risk of elopement and wandering. Special interest. Individuals with autism have that intense interest in specific topics and activities, so elopement may be motivated by a desire to pursue those interests. And then the last one up there is simply communication difficulties, although that is not simple at all, as I said that. Individuals with autism struggle to communicate their needs and desires effectively, so elopement or wandering can be a way of expressing their frustration or even seeking attention or trying to obtain the things that they want. So now that we have talked about risk factors, it's time for you to conduct a thorough risk assessment. This can help a lot in the prevention world, and so this is a very important step as a caregiver to complete. So we will begin by conducting a comprehensive assessment of the individual with autism. I want you to consider factors such as their age, their communication ability, their sensory sensitivities, and any known triggers for elopement. So that's the first step, is just that individual assessment. Next, we're going to look at behavioral history. Collect information on this individual's history of elopement incidents. See if there's any patterns, triggers, any environmental factors that have contributed to this behavior in the past. So again, we're just looking at that history of elopement. Try to write every incident down and look for those patterns. Next, I want you to look at their communication abilities. We kind of have already talked about this a little bit, but we know that individuals with communication, every individual's communication skills are different. So I want you to look at the difficulties in expressing their needs or discomfort, if they have trouble with that verbally. And so that may contribute to the likelihood of elopement. We know many of our kids are receptively able to understand a lot of what we're saying, but again, that expressive language may be difficult for them. Environmental factors. Evaluate your living environment, the school setting, and other places that you frequently go, whether it be the grocery store, a thrift store. Like, what are those things that are in your normal places, maybe a restaurant, and really evaluate those environments. Look for potential hazards, triggers of elopement, such as loud noises, the crowds, if there's something, maybe construction going on. So again, there's some unfamiliar surroundings happening around that. And then finally on this slide is collaboration with other caregivers. So if you are a mental health worker, you, of course, want to bring in the parents, other caregivers, even the educators in the assessment process. If you're a parent, you want to bring in those other caregivers, people that maybe babysit for you, again, educators, those people that are important to the individual's life. All of you together can help provide valuable insights into the individual's behaviors, triggers, and kind of come up with some successful interventions for them. So it is really about being collaborative and working together as a team. You all have a part of the puzzle to help this individual. Prevention is the name of the game. We always want to be as proactive as possible And in fact, I assume that's why you are watching this video, is you're trying to get ideas and figure out what do you need to do to either help your child or to help somebody that you work with. So thank you for watching. Again, we're very excited to have you here because this is such an important topic and can be very life-saving. All right, so let's look at prevention. First, we just talked about making an individualized safety plan. You want to develop that plan based on everything that happened in those discussions. The plan should really outline some specific strategies and interventions tailored to meet the individual's needs. Next, we want to look at visual supports. Oh, visual supports. Whew, one of my favorite things. You need to use these things. It is very important that they have a visual schedule, social stories, visual cues out in the neighborhood. Caregivers are using them. It really helps the individual with autism to understand and anticipate those daily activities. It can let them know when changes are coming up. You talk about this ahead of time. This is going to really help reduce their anxiety and help increase the predictability. And our goal, of course, is to decrease that likelihood of elopement because of that. Sensory considerations. We want to address any sensory sensitivities by creating a sensory-friendly environment. So, for example, you may carry a little, one of those like drawstring type backpacks that has some sensory supports within it. Could be some things like a noise-canceling headphones, little fidgets, materials that they like to feel and rub on. In some of your areas, again, if it's places that you regularly visit, you may designate a quiet space with minimal sensory stimulation. So we see this a lot in classrooms. Individuals do this within their homes as well. Structured routine, as we spoke about a little bit earlier, we know they really crave that routine and structure. So to establish as much of a predictable routine as you can, both in the home setting and also in the educational or classroom setting. That consistency and routine is really going to provide a sense of security for the individual with autism, again, reducing that likelihood of elopement. When those routines are going to be changed, we really need to talk about it ahead of time and warn them. Again, if we have a visual schedule, we can show them when that change is getting ready to happen. We may have social stories that talk about change and how to accept that, and that is just a part of life. Like, we try to be as routine and structured as we can, but there are things that are going to happen that are going to kind of derail that, and we have to go with the flow a little bit, but we're going to have to explicitly teach that to our individuals. We also want to work on communication strategies. Develop and implement effective communication strategies, such as using those visual and verbal cues to help the individual express their needs or want. It's very important that you're kind of checking in with them and seeing how they are feeling. This can help prevent frustration and anxiety that can come. Technology and tracking devices. So again, our world has become very tech savvy. There's lots of different devices out there. There are wearable GPS tracking devices. So I know like the Apple AirTags are kind of a popular one, but there are some devices, bracelets, things again that you can tie onto their shoes that are geared specifically for the autistic community. There's also, if your child is at very high risk of wandering and elopement, many police stations also have some devices. Project Lifesaver is one that comes to mind. So you may ask your local police department about those type of things too. But those technology and tracking devices are really going to allow you to monitor your individual's location and receive alerts if they move beyond a certain designated area. Again, do your research, read reviews, find what's going to work best for your family. And then the last thing listed on this slide, of course, is staff training. This will vary a little bit from person to person, but it's really important not only for caregivers to have training, but again, educators, any type of support staff, even therapists. Be honest, you may bring in those other family and friends that are part of your network and make sure that they are trained on autism awareness, effective strategies to help prevent this elopement, make sure they recognize the individual signs of distress, they know the de-escalation techniques that work, and that they are helping to implement these preventative strategies. I wish I could tell you if you follow every step and suggestion within this training that elopement or wandering would never happen. But just truthfully, that's not the case. There may be situations when it does happen. Again, as I said kind of in the opening, even the very best of parents that feel like they are doing everything right, it happens. Like, again, there's no judgment with that. But of course, we want to get your child back to you as safely and quickly as possible. So immediate response for when elopement occurs is key. Okay, so your immediate response. First thing I need you to do, stay calm. I know that's a hard one, but it is crucial for caregivers and professionals to remain calm during an elopement incident. Panic can escalate the situation and make it more challenging to address the immediate concern at hand. Next, I need you to assess the environment. Quickly assess the immediate surroundings to determine any potential risk or dangers. This assessment should include traffic, bodies of water, again, you've heard me hit water a lot, or any other hazards that may pose a threat to the individual's safety. Next, let's start using some verbal cues. If the individual responds to verbal communication, I want you to use clear and concise instructions to encourage them to return or stop. Again, this is why maintaining a calm presence is very important, because I need you to maintain a calm and a reassuring tone to avoid increasing their anxiety. If they think they are in trouble or that you're angry with them, they may continue to go farther from the home or location that you are at. Next, avoid pursuit. In some cases, chasing the individual who is eloping may actually make the situation worse. Instead, try to position yourself in a way that encourages the individual to return willingly. Use those verbal prompts, preferred items to kind of draw them in and get them to come to you. Next, yes, enlist some help. If possible, seek assistance from others in the vicinity. So this could include just casual bystanders. It could be other teachers, educators, other caregivers, and try to assign specific roles to each person to maximize the effectiveness of the response. And we'll talk about assigning roles a little bit as we talk about the kind of written plan that we have. And then also have a containment plan. Develop and practice a plan for creating a physical barrier or some type of containment strategy to prevent the individual from wandering into potentially dangerous areas. So this could include blocking exits, creating a human barrier if needed. Again, just trying to get them contained within that area. After a situation has happened, de-escalation is needed. So let's talk about some communication techniques to help in that. First is our nonverbal communication. We need to pay attention to those nonverbal cues, such as our body language, our facial expressions, and try to help gauge the individual's emotional state. So not only do we want to be mindful of ourselves, again, of that body language and facial expressions, but we want to look at the individual and see how is their body language, how is their facial expressions, because that's going to kind of let us know their emotional state in this. And then we want to adjust our own nonverbal communication, again, to help them feel calm, understood, and not judged in that. We want to provide them some space. Allow them some physical space, especially if they feel overwhelmed or agitated. Crowding or imposing too much physical proximity may actually escalate the situation. Visual supports. If the individual uses visual supports and responds well to them, we want to use them with this as well. Use visual supports, and when I say visual supports, like on the screen here you see the little pictures, it can mean pictures, but visual supports can also just be words. Just like, I use a visual support every day if I have some type of bullet list of tasks that I need to do. So it doesn't always have to be pictures, but it can be written instructions that convey information for them. So those visual supports can really enhance their understanding and reduce that anxiety, because sometimes all those voices talking at them and giving them directions and things to do can be overwhelming. So just, again, either providing the visual support of a picture or a list is a great way to support them. Offer them choices. Provide the individual with choices when possible. This can help them regain a sense of control, some autonomy, helping to reduce those feelings of frustration or distress. Help redirect their attention. Gently redirect the individual's attention to a preferred item or activity. This can be especially effective if the elopement was triggered by some type of sensory sensitivity or overload. So, again, getting them interested in something that they like and that is calming to them. And then the last thing up there, of course, is crisis de-escalation training. Mental health providers and caregivers should all undergo training in de-escalation techniques. This training equips them with the skills to manage those challenging behaviors and prevent escalation into more dangerous situations. Work collaboratively with your local law enforcement and community resources. I want you to get out there and build a relationship with these individuals before a situation arises. Maybe as a family, you bake some chocolate chip cookies and you take them to your local fire department and kind of thank them, but also it's an opportunity for them to meet your child, engage with them, learn their name, learn a little bit about how they communicate, what their likes and dislikes are. Again, all of that can be very important prior to a situation happening. It also lets your child become comfortable with them, their uniforms, their setting, before a potential situation happens, so that they're not afraid or run from them in a situation of wandering or elopement. So collaboration can take form in many ways. First is community awareness. We want to raise awareness about autism within our local communities, again, including local and law enforcement agencies. Provide training sessions, informational materials to those community members to help them understand the characteristics of autism and potential challenges around elopement. Here at the Kentucky Autism Training Center, we are very happy to provide free training to local law enforcement. All they have to do is reach out and we will work on scheduling that for them. I'm sure that in other states and other places there are programs like that as well. Also, having some type of emergency response plan in place will be crucial. You want to develop and share this emergency response plan with your local law enforcement so they know it. This plan should include specific information about your child's communication preferences, their sensory sensitivities, and any effective de-escalation strategies that have worked. I am going to include a resource folder at the end of this, and so there will be a sample emergency response plan in there that you could either use that one, or if you find a different one, or maybe your local community has something in place. I would also reach out to your 911 operators and see if they have any type of program in place. I know here locally where I live that if you have a child that is non-speaking, they can kind of put that in your 911 plan. And so that way when you call, they already kind of have some basic information about your individual. Identification tools. I'm encouraging you to use some type of identification tool. Again, I talked about medical alert bracelets. There's other wearable devices that provide information about your individual's diagnosis and emergency contact information. If you're going out to an amusement park or state fair or something like that, that's a very crowded place. Again, hopefully they're wearing something like that, but there's also little temporary tattoos that can be purchased that have some of that information. For older individuals, you see there on the screen, there's kind of a card that says I'm autistic. Sorry, getting tongue-tied there. So again, if that's an effective mean for your individual, that's a great way of doing it as well. Collaborative training sessions. Facilitating collaborative training sessions between, again, everybody that works with your individual would be great. So mental health providers, caregivers, law enforcement. These sessions can really enhance communication between different stakeholders and ensure that everybody is coordinated in their response when situations like wandering and elopement happens. Establishing relationships. You, kind of like I said in the very opening of this part, you really want to build those relationships with your local law enforcement officers. Also, outside of just your local first responders, if there's a school resource officer at your child's school, build a relationship with them. Make sure that that school resource officer knows your child, knows, again, their communication style, their de-escalation strategies, things like that. And then with any other community organizations as well. This can really help create a supportive network that understands and responds effectively, again, when some type of elopement or wandering situation happens. And then last on our list is just community resources, connecting families with local resources. And I know that's a challenge in some parts of the country. Even here in Kentucky, we have some areas that there's a lot of local resources, and then there's areas where it's really a kind of a desert, which is part of why we have our YouTube channel and social media platforms that we try to get information and resources to families. If you're not connected with a support group, you might look at reaching out to that. And then, of course, there's organizations such as Kentucky Autism Training Center that are there to help support you in that too. These resources can really just help provide additional supports and information, not only about elopement and wandering, but so many challenges that you may be dealing with, but also celebrations. We want to celebrate with you when you've had great success with something. All right, so what are your next steps? I want you to review and reflect. I really want you to review your current practices and policies regarding elopement and wandering and just reflect on them. Would love to see you implement some of these preventative strategies that we've discussed during this training, such as creating an individualized safety plan. And if you're not using visual supports, please look at ways that you can increase those. Training and education. Look at how we can further train and educate staff members, caregivers on recognizing these risk factors and how to respond in these types of situations. Share this video with other individuals that take care of your child, other community members, things like that. Collaboration. I hope you have heard that word a lot as we've moved through this. We really want to build collaboration. It takes everybody to do that. So build that collaboration again with your local law enforcement or first responders. Develop community-wide emergency response plans and identification tools. Again, the Kentucky Autism Training Center, also known as KATC, we offer free training for first responders. All they have to do, again, is reach out and we will work on getting that set up for them. Look at potentially updating your policies. Again, look at what the policies and procedures are for your organization and see if there's something that you need to do to incorporate best practices for elopement and monitoring. Elopement and wandering. Sorry. And then the next thing up there is just monitor your progress. Kind of like early in this training, I said, look at the history of times that they have eloped and wandering and figure out those triggers and things. Now that you've been through this training and start implementing some of these strategies, really kind of monitor what is working, what is not working, and make adjustments as needed. Seek support. We don't want you doing this alone. We want you to have support from professionals and other organizations that specialize in autism. Again, KATC. We have this YouTube channel. We have an amazing website. There you see a screenshot of our safety resources. There's one whole section on our website that is dedicated to that. We also are on social media of Facebook, Instagram, X, which was formerly Twitter. So there's lots of ways that you can get support through our agency, but also find local places for you and people. And then just share your knowledge. Again, we don't want you doing this in a silo on your own. Share your knowledge with others. Share your experiences. You live it. What works, what doesn't work. We really count on those who have lived through it to expand our knowledge and our understanding. So share that knowledge with colleagues, families, and other stakeholders to just promote that safer environment for individuals at risk of wandering and elopement. Please take your device and scan this QR code to be able to access a resource folder that will have lots of things in it that I hope you find helpful. But one of those things in particular that I mentioned was that safety plan. So in that plan will be a way for you to kind of write down everything that's important about your child, but also develop a plan of, like in your neighborhood, who's willing to kind of help you in a situation of wandering and elopement. And then not only who is willing, but what are their exact responsibilities, because it's going to be really important in a situation like that, that your neighbor on your right hand side who maybe has a pool, he knows the first place he needs to look is his pool, and then whatever area you have assigned him. Your neighbor on your left hand side, again, he may know that the neighbor 3 houses down has a pond in their yard, and so his responsibility is to go down there and check the pond, but then where does he go from there? So again, that resource folder hopefully will have lots of resources for you. You also see some links of where we gathered some of our other resources that we are sharing with you if you want to investigate more on those. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Tracy Belfield. If you have further questions, comments, again, successes that you want to share, feel free to email me and ask me those questions. As I've said throughout this video, we are here to support you, so we have lots of ways that you can do that. Our website is Kentucky or KYautism.org. We have a Facebook page, we have an Instagram page, we have X. Of course, you're on our YouTube page so that you see we have videos and trainings on here, and we are constantly updating and adding to those. So please take advantage and subscribe to, like I said, our social media pages, and check out our website that's amazing. And again, we're always adding resources too. We want to be a resource for you. And again, if you need anything, just email me. And then if you can do one more thing for me, I'd really appreciate it. If you have made it to the end of this video, we would love to hear your feedback. So again, you can scan the QR code and it will take you to the evaluation, or you can go to bit.ly/KTC online 2425 and complete a short survey. Again, this really helps us just know how we're doing and what we can do to improve. So we appreciate the feedback that you can provide for us. Again, if you need anything, we are here to help. Just reach out. Thank you for participating today.